Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the University Campus Fellowship Education Podcast. I'm your host, Sister Mlenga Chungu, and with me is a very special guest, my friend and Brother Nebert Hampako. Brother Nebert, welcome to this episode.
Thank you very much for having me, Sister Mlenga.
And thank you for honoring our invitation to have this conversation with me and with our viewers out there. So, today we're going to be discussing a very important question in terms of academics. So, typically, when we are starting out our academic journey, we have this idea that it's going to be a straight line. However, because of different circumstances, whether they be within our control or out of our control, the academic journey does not go as smooth as we want it to be. So we are discussing failure and success in academics. And to kickstart this conversation with Brother Nebert, I'm going to ask him this. How has your academic journey been so far?
Well, my academic journey, especially in the end, has been fine. But I would like to give a short preview of how it has actually been. I started school at the University of Zambia in 2018.
Okay.
Yes.
That's how many years ago?
That is about 7 years ago. And I was doing a 4-year program. And I completed last year, so you can do the math. And clearly, when you do the math, you find out to say that there's 3 years that are not adding up. What happened in those 3 years? The first year, I was at the University of Zambia, 2018. I happened to fail 2 courses.
In your first year?
Yes, in my first year,
Okay.
2018. And when I failed those 2 courses, I, had to go on part-time.
What does that mean?
So part-time is whereby you're no longer allowed to proceed to the next year. You actually have to repeat the whole year because of those courses that you failed. Yes. So some people can actually fail 1 course and they're allowed to proceed, but repeat that course. But for me, I was put on part-time because you can't fail half of the courses at the University of Zambia and be allowed to proceed. So I was told to repeat them for a whole year, just these 2 courses.
Okay. Was this the first time that you were experiencing failure in your academic journey, or had you already handled a situation like that?
Generally speaking, I think I was brilliant throughout from grade 1 to grade 12. And my grade 12 results perhaps are some results that made me think to say that I would continue with the brilliance perhaps, but then it wasn't the case. In fact, going back to my failure, I failed in 2018, I went to part-time. I actually repeated those 2 courses and failed again.
Both courses?
Yes, both courses.
Okay, talk about a redemption story, all right? And what do you think made you fail initially, and what also led to the subsequent failure?
Okay, what made me fail initially is I did not really take life seriously. There wasn't much motivation, you'd say inspiration from within. It didn't feel like I had anything. I had a proper reason for why I was doing what I was doing. So I failed because of that the first time. The second time, I would also make the same claim, but the second time I thought to say that because I failed once and I was familiar with the courses, it was going to be a walkover. But actually, that's not the case. I was shown to say you can actually fail twice if you do not learn your mistakes properly from your failure.
Okay, so I am made of questions right now. First of all, what program of study were you enrolled in?
I was enrolled under School of Natural Sciences. At first, I actually wanted to do mechanical engineering, but due to the failures, I found myself enrolled in physics, of which I actually switched to computer science, and that is the spirit.
Oh, okay. And did you eventually find purpose in studying computer science? Because you mentioned that your initial failure was attributed to you not knowing exactly why you were doing what you were doing.
All right. I would say yes, I was able to find purpose in computer science because much of the things involved in the field are things I was actually interested in. But I do not think to say that was the major thing that brought inspiration to me. You see, this is where before I actually began to succeed and finally pass, there were a few things that changed a bit. One of them is understanding to say that my success was something that my family and also my future family would be dependent on. And another thing was I recognized my obligation to God. Beforehand, my spiritual life wasn't really something you would marvel at, or well, not even marvel at. It's not something that I myself was actually proud of. But once I found to say I have an obligation to God and I have an obligation to man, being my family and my future family, I became more inspired to do what I was doing. Like I said, I was already interested in computers, technology, and the like. But that's not enough for an inspiration for me. I always need a big reason as to why I should do what I should do.
Okay, and I don't think there's any bigger reason than God Himself, and then also the recognition of the responsibility that rests on you as a man in society, both from the family that you're coming from and your future family, as you mentioned. But then, just to talk about family, how did your parents, your siblings, your peers react to your first failure and second failure?
All right, I'll start with my friends. None of my friends ever believed that I lacked intelligence as I felt. They always used to ask me, why would you, someone they knew as brilliant, fail? So that was the case for my friends. And that was a question really difficult to respond to. Because it's really hard when you're in that stage to actually figure things out. Now looking backwards, I'm able to clearly perceive what was actually wrong.
Yeah.
When it comes to family, well, my brothers didn't say much, but my parents, I could see the disappointment on their faces, and multiple times I would feel. In fact, there was a time my dad actually suggested that I should even change schools. So that I could, maybe the school was too hard for me. But I politely rejected that offer. Even at customer care, because there was a time I had to work on things with regards to my portal, something given to you when you enter the University of Zambia.
Alright.
And I was advised there to change my program. They said, you go to humanities instead of natural sciences, because we've seen to say that you're failing too much. Maybe you landed in the wrong school. So that is how I would say different people actually responded or talked about my failure.
About your failure. And how did you bounce back? Like, were you so self-confident in your mental capabilities or in your strategy? How did you bounce back? Because I imagine failing once can be very traumatizing and embarrassing, and I do know a lot of students who have not experienced the pressure of tertiary education and then they suddenly are failing, find it very difficult. It can throw them into depression, or they just completely drop the school thing. How did you manage to pick yourself up?
Well, I never at any point thought myself to be down.
Okay.
So I always understood, based on how I relate to myself, to say that yes, I have a sort of sophisticated way of thinking, and yes, I'm still able to solve puzzles and whatever it may be. While that may be the case, that's not enough. It's not enough to just be intelligent. So I understood to say there's more that you have to put in. I could see from friends who even thought I was smarter than them, they themselves, who worked much harder than I did. And I actually learned from them. I knew to say that these people, though they may not have the very high intellectual capabilities, because of their hard work, because of how much effort they put in what they do, they were able to succeed. So those are some of the things that came to mind back then. But now I actually have different perspectives on how someone can actually go about the situation where they are facing a situation of failure.
So could you dive a little bit more into the strategies that one can employ when they're navigating failing a course or even just a subject in high school?
All right. Two things. I have two things in mind. The first one is always remember to say we are made in the image of God. So, one of the things about that statement is the Bible verse says we are made in the image of God and in the likeness of God. So, apart from the appearance,
Yes.
also the way we reason is that similar to God. As Christians, we know to say God is infinite in the way He thinks.
Yes.
And because of that, if we are microcosms of Him, small models of Him, we must not to say we also have these abilities that are relatively infinite also. So my understanding of that and the understanding that the Bible gives me is such that I know to say even a person who fails miserably has a habit of failing, it's not because they are not capable, but because they are just not nourishing or working on those attributes that or basically parts of themselves that God has actually given them.
Yeah.
God has given us all a mind that can really reason, but some people haven't really developed it. And I know to say, if I'm made in the image of God, I have all those capabilities. I just need to work on them. So, first of all, no one is inherently dumb.
Okay.
The second thing is coming from, let me try to remember this, from James 1 verse 5. It says, if any one of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally. Then I'll just end on that part in this particular reading. Now, what is wisdom? If you happen to know what wisdom is.
Applied knowledge.
All right, great. So applied knowledge, and most of the stuff we do in school is we learn things, right?
Yes. Yes.
It is one thing to learn things, and it is another to apply. We must actually all have the ability to apply the things that we learn in school. And I think this is where we, even in a test, because basically a test or an exam is just a situation presented to you where you can now apply the knowledge that you've been learning during the year. Now, we've been told to say in James, if any one of us lacks this ability, we should ask from God. And this one thing, people always forget. If you are facing failure, God is there to give you wisdom so that you can apply the knowledge that you are learning in the way it is supposed to apply. His only source of wisdom. If you put God aside, you won't succeed in anything. Like I said in the beginning, one of the things that made me bounce back from my failure is an understanding of my responsibility to God. But that came with an understanding of God more than I did before.
Okay, thank you so much. That is so profound and so encouraging. Would you say that there has been any other role, for instance, from family, from church, from your friends, from the university as an institution that helped be part of your support system in your bouncing back to academic success?
Well, I'll start with my siblings. They did complain much when I failed. I not say they're also supposed to receive support in their own sphere.
I see.
And the other thing is, it didn't seem like my parents either also thought to say that I was incapable. They continued paying. You know, it's actually a lot of money. I would say about 15,000 for the courses that I actually failed. And imagine having to pay that twice for the failures that I actually counted. So you can see the support there. And on the church part, well, I can't say much, but I know to say my friends from church also did not make it a topic of discussion where someone, because sometimes when people are talked about as failures, it does something to them.
Yeah.
No one ever did that for me. No one ever said things that could actually make me think that I was actually failed.
Wow, that is absolutely profound, and I'm really glad that you had a whole holistic or wholesome support system around you, and that you also developed the right mindset that allowed you to actually make use of the resources that were given to you. And I think it's a very excellent example of how that we as people and even our Lord Jesus Christ continues to show us grace even in the sphere of academics. And in closing, I'm going to congratulate you because I do know that you are graduating with a bachelor's degree in computer science.
Under systems engineering.
Under systems engineering, congratulations, and thank you so much for your perseverance, and even more so for sharing your story and your academic journey on how to move from failure to success, and for giving your words of counsel even to our listeners out there and our viewers as well. Would you like to say any final words?
Final words. In this world that we're living in, everything is telling us to forget God. Everything leads us away from God. If you want success in life, always remember God. Without Him, we truly can do nothing, as Jesus actually said. Always remember that you won't find yourself in a position of failure. Or if you find yourself in one, you bounce back from it.
Absolutely. Well, do take those words of encouragement from somebody that knows what he is talking about, because he has walked a mile in those shoes. In fact, 2 miles, if we can put it figuratively. But do make sure that you make use of the tips and points that have been brought up in this episode. And if you'd like more content that has to do with academics and helps you develop yourself in terms of your spirituality and your academics as well, make sure you subscribe to our channel as the University Campus Fellowship, because we have more exciting topics. Soon we will be dropping another episode that is going to be talking about how to deal with education and school, specifically when the school obligations start to clash with the Sabbath. So do stay tuned. Make sure that you like our page, make sure that you like this video, and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any uploads that we have. Stay blessed.